So my story is about working in a non-lean organisation, but it began 3 years ago, and I was lucky enough I can see Betty on screen to be inspired by Betty at Zingerman's and then go to Mercy as part of our trip when we went to America. Now, one of the ladies at Mercy, Katie, this has so stuck in my head. She said, look, however good a coach you think you are now, you'll realise you can be so much better. And you know when you just don't know what you don't know? So my friend and colleague Joy and I embarked on this journey. So starting at the beginning of picking up on Damon's thing about the gym, we had no clue. We were just exercising just crazily, really. Then started to practice as learner and some light bulbs went on. And then consistently practice, we got that running. So Michael, I can see is on here as well, just twice a week coaching, Michael, Mark, Graham, anybody who'd coached, just be part of that. Unravelled the thinking, learned a bit more, got better, learned, actually we didn't know that much and went round the loop again. So that was really important for how I started to work with this team, being able to share my experience, but being able to understand my experience to connect with them. Now, in my world, we talk about this idea of big C coaching, which is like that personal development, career coaching, one-to-one. Sometimes you get sent for coaching if you're not performing well. And we talk about small C coaching. So the idea of the coaching conversation, managers as coaches, leaders as coaches. And we don't have a mechanism for doing that. So right now I work across a region of the UK which serves 6 million people for healthcare. And we don't have a consistent method for doing this. So one of the areas, one of those systems, who you don't mention lean a lot in healthcare in the UK. You might as well, for those of you familiar with Harry Potter, you might as well talk about Voldemort consistently, because the application has often been tools-based and just not done very well. So I didn't mention lean, but I went to one of my systems and said, look, I've got an idea about how we could develop small C coaching. Would you just experiment with me? And building on that idea of developing competency through what we were using called the Dreyfus model. And the response from them was, okay, I'll do it because I like you and I like the way you coach and I want to coach with you. So I wanted to learn from you. But by the way, we've got an improvement method and we're not changing it. So anyway, we set off and we just practiced Kata. We never mentioned lean. Everybody had their own challenges. We just practiced and we learned with the view of purely developing that small C coaching skill. And I think this is my learning. So to develop leaders as coaches, Kata it's rigorous, it's really repeatable, and you can replicate it. And in the way that we set it up, now the learners in that group and coaches in that group have been able to take on their own. So we've developed lots of bite-sized modules, little learner guides, all of that kind of stuff. And what I have learned is lean is often a distraction. So when I've worked with really, really experienced lean professionals, Kata can come along sometimes as quite a threat. Or people are so concerned that they don't know tools that this practicing around coaching is difficult. And with that, the tools don't matter. Consistently, I've seen that people don't use as many tools as they've got. So one of the things that we're looking at is what do you actually teach? We've got loads of tools-based programs and people have lots of tools, so they don't need them. Now, the biggest surprise for me was around learning styles. And as somebody who's obsessed with reading, has always been obsessed with reading, many staff don't read to learn. And so I had one of the learners in that group was really not confident in coaching. And he came to me separately and said, look, I can't read what is on that card consistently. It just looks a blur to me. So I put a question out on Twitter, and Mike and Jeff Leica created this picture card for me, and now they just use it consistently. The picture card is their card of choice. I think whatever type of organisation you're in, just creating enough confidence to practice. So I was really open and saying, look, it'll feel uncomfortable. Let's just go with it. Let's laugh about it, go with it, and just learn. So that idea of psychological safety. And by creating skill in individuals, the whole team learns. So I'd really advocate doing it, bringing teams together and creating. There's so much material out there that everybody's got. We started with big development blocks that we brought lots of people to. Now what I've done is created just tiny bite-sized modules and little learner guides. So those boards down there, they're quick guides to the different elements of a board. And one is just some clarifying questions, so to help learners when they're really starting, just to have something at hand that they can use. In terms of methodology in Kata, and I've seen this because we've got an IHI methodology, we've got 7 steps, we've got lean. I think you just have to experiment to see the natural fit, and it will, by consistent experimentation, we found that people just find how they fit together. So that question, that comment that I showed on the previous slide of, we've got a method, we're not changing, thank you very much. Nobody had to change anything, they just came together. And the structure of Kata, particularly working in that organisation, was it built relationships because everything was predictable. Hierarchy didn't matter. You came and you played your role. So this team talks about having really good relationships because they now speak the same language. There's no technicality of tools. It's just a common language created through that framework as Kata. And for that, the obstacles are the way for me. Just relish them. Whereas people were seeing problems before, they were really seeing opportunities. And I have to say, I use it all the time. The Kata Twitterati are just incredible. If you've got a problem or you want to connect somebody, just find people on Twitter. And it's been so liberating because what it's meant for me is I've pointed people in that direction. So I've now got a natural pull for Kata, but without it being really intertwined with lean. So that's my story, my experience.